Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Artist Emancipation Podcast. I am so excited because I am here with somebody who I've been wanting to talk to forever, who is my soul sister from across the nation, and Julissa. How are you? Thank you so much for joining us. I cannot wait to hear more about your story.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great today, and I'm so honored to be here, to be talking with you. I've admired you and your work for so long, so
Oh my God.
really
And
excited.
guys, just to give you an FYI of how, because I told everybody in like a previous episode, I only have this podcast, so I don't feel like an idiot reaching out to other artists who I admire so I can become friends with them. And you're exactly one of those people. So this is our first initial conversation, and we both get on the live and we both hold up our Furbies or our gremlins, I should say, our gremlins. And do you want to hold yours up? Because
Yes, I do.
Everybody who is listening to the audio, go look at the YouTube video because this is how we connected. So already we are having the most incredible time. Julissa, tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey, how you got to be where you are right now, because your audience also knows you as Pax Paints. You have a huge social media following. So how did this all happen for you?
Yes. So my name is Julissa, and I went to college for industrial and labor relations. Nothing to do with what I do now. It does help me a little bit with how I approach it, but I had planned to go to law school, and post graduation, I started a job. It was a traveling job, and I really loved it. I was working with people all across the US, and while on the job, I was involved in a car accident. And after the car accident, I woke up with a lot of vision issues and memory issues and difficulties communicating myself. I had a really hard time. Like, people would ask me, because I would go to the doctor quite a bit. People would ask me, like, what's your street address? What's your phone number? All those things. I couldn't remember any of that. And I had just written a thesis before graduation. It was like 60 pages, and I couldn't read any of it because of my vision issues. So the first year that I was in recovery, I was waiting to see what was going on with basically my body. I didn't really understand. I had gone from being a very healthy individual with like no real issues or difficulties or pains to now having chronic pain, chronic fatigue, chronic nausea every day, migraines every day, and panic attacks every day because I didn't know how to really deal with what was going on with my body. And nobody could really tell me what was happening. It just kept getting worse and worse, and doctors didn't really understand. And actually, I did end up seeing a lot of doctors that would just look at me and say, well, you're young, so what's going on? Why are you in pain? And I actually didn't know either. And I was just like really confused. Like, why am I not getting better? And I also had a hard time just describing what I was experiencing. And through all of this, I felt really just stressed out, and needing an outlet. And I used to be a writer before, and it was much more academic writing. But after all of this happened, then I went to a store one day and I saw a really cheap paint set, and I was like, why don't I try painting? I've heard all about art therapy. I've heard about the benefits of art and things like that. And I had always looked at it and thought, well, I don't understand how that can really help somebody. But I thought I'd give it a try. It was completely new. And I had a lot of like stressors around my new life and like not being able to write how I used to write, not being able to communicate how I used to communicate, and having training in those things. So I wanted something brand new that I had no training in, that I wouldn't critique myself about before trying it. And I just fell absolutely in love with painting and creativity and expressing myself. And I had also around that time just started vision therapy. So it was about a year that I just didn't really know what was going on. Then I got the testing and all that stuff and found out what was going on. And I had to do a lot of exercises in vision therapy that were very similar to painting. Like, when you're painting, you're kind of, a lot of approaches will color block first, and you're looking at value shapes and trying to determine like which shapes go where and things like that. And I was doing very similar things in therapy, like trying to recreate shapes from my visual memory, trying to do like puzzles with like shapes. Sometimes I would do I Spy. So there's a lot of like visual skills that I was doing, and I was training in visual therapy to help me with my issues that were also things that I was working on in art. And slowly I started to feel more confident with my artistic skills, and I started to also kind of process what I was going through, think about it, reflect, understand the journey, and I became comfortable with talking about what I was going through. And I had the language to both like medically, but also just personally, just discuss what the hell was going on. And I realized that I get so much joy from creating and painting that it's a new passion of mine, and it's brought me so much like purpose and community, and it makes me feel endless. It makes me feel like I'm tapping into something different. And I also I had always yearned for being creative before because I was so focused on academics and things like that. And I had an artist friend in college, and she was a roommate of mine. And I always looked at her drawings, and I was always like, wow, that's so cool. I wish I had that skill. I wish I had that ability to just express a feeling and depict something that I see and things like that. And I never, ever in my life imagined that I would become an artist myself, ever. I always kind of denied that part of myself. And, so in all of this, just absolutely love painting. I think anyone can do it. I get a little frustrated because some people seem to think that I woke up one day and started painting. No.
Yeah.
No, I have to battle very severe visual difficulties to paint, and I do that, and I think anyone can. I also recently started art journaling, and that has actually been so special because I didn't think I would ever write again. I just thought, I'm a painter. I'm just going to paint. Yeah. And then I started art journaling, and something clicked. It was like something in my brain. I don't know. My brain felt like it just a spark happened. I was tapping into my neuroplasticity, and something worked. And I just started writing short poems again. And I think in this journey, I've learned a lot about just meeting myself where I'm at and not trying to jump too far in or expect too much or really expect anything, because I think the things that I create that I enjoy most, that I'm most proud of, I'm not really thinking or critiquing, or I'm like turning off that part of my brain. And I really think that's a skill anyone can learn as well. And it's an important skill.
Yes.
So that's kind of a little bit about my journey.
Love it. Like, one of the first things that drew me to you was the fact that you were showcasing the human along with the artist. And I feel like that's a big thing that gets kind of put in the closet as an artist.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yes, I'm willing to show you my work. I'll set up a gallery, but am I willing to step beside my work and show the story and show the pain, show the experience, not necessarily coming from my artwork, but coming from me to human, and I think art is a beautiful representation of that, but there's something about when we stand beside our artwork, and you do that beautifully.
Thank you. Yeah, I totally agree. I think for me, art, really, really big, important part of art is human connection. And if you think about a lot of the artists that we know today that we value, they were expressing a very deep and human and real and vulnerable part of themselves. And I think that's part of the reason why we remember them. Frida Kahlo, Van Gogh, Monet, they just expressed themselves. And that is what has helped me a lot with my journey with perfectionism, is I try to focus on expressing a feeling authentically and vulnerably versus trying to be technically perfect. And I think I also had these difficulties with sharing online for a little bit, and I did overcome that. But I think there is such a strength and there is such a need also for human connection, and that requires us to show up with our art, and I think it's also powerful to be able to see the person that's making it, to understand the motivations behind why they're making it, and it's just a little easier to connect, when I'm walking down the street and somebody's like, hi, and I see a human, I'm like, hi, you know what I mean? It's a little easier than if they were just like, look at this, you know what I mean?
And the thing with your artwork too is because your colors, and I'll share some of your artwork on my feed when I share this episode, but the colors in your artwork are so vibrant and fluorescent, and it's a different style than I've seen anybody do. And it's like, if I only saw that for face value, not knowing your story, I'd be like, oh, she just likes neon color. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it doesn't add up. But when I hear the story and I hear the journey and then I see the artwork, it's like I feel this connection to you without ever talking to you. And that's the real success of art. Like you were saying, it's that connection.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's really important to me too, that it comes through that a lot of my style has been inspired by my vision issues. And I think that it's important to me to communicate that, because my biggest message with my work, if I could give it one message, if I could broadcast anything about it, is just that we can make beautiful things from difficult moments or struggles or whatever we're going through. And I think it's really urgent and important to do that, because like hope can be a really abstract concept for people and can be tough to find, and sometimes I have a hard time finding that. But for me, art making is about literally crafting that hope in real time. And it's a reason why art gave me a reason to keep going through pretty intense, pretty life-changing difficulties. So I'm really glad that you saw that, because it's really important to me to, tell that story.
And I think the bravery that comes along with that, like there's two things artists really struggle with. It's one, the bravery to step up, be online, show your face like you are. Like it took me, I want to say like 5 years to show up in the way that I do. And even I'm not the best at it, The second part is the vulnerability, the way that you're sharing your story. And it's 100% truth. It's really beautiful. And it gives that bravery for other people to do the same thing. And it doesn't have to be the same situation. It doesn't have to be the same, kind of health issues. But it's like, I look at you and I'm like, I have no reason to not share my story. If she's doing this, it gives me the hope and I love that you brought up the word hope, because we're going to talk about your book that's coming out. But like, it's such a beautiful thing, because it's like, yes, you're healing you and you're healing other people at the same time just by sharing your story.
That means a lot to me to hear, because I hope that's what I can help anyone with, even just one person. I think my motivation for sharing, because I also did, like I mentioned, I struggled with that a little bit. It's a little scary to come forward, and it is Invisible Disabilities Awareness Week. So I just wanted to mention that. It is a little difficult to come forward, especially for people with like invisible issues, disabilities, because a lot of the time we go to receive care and we are not believed. And that can be really, really traumatizing and difficult. And it can bring up a lot of memories, because like, I know when I first started sharing, a lot of people would say like, oh, you're just saying this for clout. This is not real. Like you're just chasing social media validation, all of that. And that's definitely not my motivation at all. In the first year that I was waiting for treatment and waiting to see what was going on, I felt so incredibly isolated, and I felt like nobody understood anything that I was going through. And I felt so like demoralized and just like kind of hopeless. And so it's so important to me that I can try to give somebody that hope of like sharing and understanding and telling their own story and finding others who might relate, because it's so valid. It's like a breath of fresh air when I find somebody that's like, oh my gosh, I went through the same thing, and you helped me articulate this, or you helped me start painting, or whatever, anything, any way I can help. So yeah, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And so Crafting Hope is a book that you have coming out. It's for pre-order now. And I will say that I've gotten my copy already, because I cannot wait to have it and hold it and look at the beautiful art in it. But it's almost like a collage style, I want to say, and it includes your art and your writing. So do you want to talk a little bit about this and how it came to be?
Yes. So thank you. Thank you for ordering. I started art journaling at the recommendation of a friend very recently. And through kind of excavating my art sketchbooks and gathering ephemera, different images, looking at repurposing trash basically. Like I've taken some receipts, I've taken some tickets, I've taken some of my pallets that I've just like ripped off, the paper pallets,
Yeah, yeah.
and tried to create visually interesting images to kind of just express whatever I was feeling in the in between of working on original paintings, commissions, teaching, whatever. But I have this feeling within me, and I think most creatives have this, or I think anyone can have this, but most creatives, when you create, the more you create, the more endless you feel in the creativity. Like you just feed it and then it just wants more. So I feel like when I'm creating, I just want to do more. And so sometimes when I'm like really busy with other stuff and I can't create original work, I'll take a little bit of time and create these art journal entries. I'm revisiting a lot of the themes that I'm thinking about in my paintings, because sometimes I'll take either from my sketchbook or prints or things like that, and I'll put them in the entry. And through that process of being creative in a new way and gathering physical pieces, I think there's something so special about that process of having something tactile in your hands. Thinking about composition a little differently, because it's not really necessarily a painting. I do have some actual paintings in there, some small ones, but as I mentioned earlier, something sparked in my mind, like a poem would arrive to me. And I didn't expect that. Like one of my favorite entries, so something that I did for my art journal specifically, and that I recommend anybody who wants to start an art journal to do, is I went to the thrift store and I just thought, what would interest me to rip apart? What book? And I went to the space books because I freaking love space. I love everything about it. I love the butterfly, all that stuff. And I got a space book and I was just paging through it. I read about the birth of a star and how a star like essentially collapses into itself to burn brighter. And I was so inspired by that. And I wrote a poem about it. And I can't really explain exactly how, but I think there's some sort of neurological backing to that, or something about like the brain just working its magic. And that's something I've also learned from my journey, is just like the brain is so powerful, because like it will adjust to almost anything. Like every time I get a little better, I'm like, whoa, how did I survive that?
Where that came
Yeah,
from.
I'm like, how did I live with that forever? But anyways, so just I got a little off topic there, but
You're fine, no.
I just really loved art journaling, and I started to write again, and I started to share these entries. I actually wasn't planning to share them, but no, I thought every time that I'm scared to share something, I know I should share it, because then people seem to resonate with it more. And it's so weird, but it's so true. You might have this experience too, right?
100%. And I always do it by like, it's the stuff that I'm like a little scared to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm speaking on stage in like 3 weeks and I'm like, that like makes me feel nervous. I have to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to like pursue it or figure it out 100%.
But I bet people look at you and they're like, oh, she's so brave. She's so like, but then you're like, I'm actually kind of nervous.
You know what it is? It's like, it's these little, and I love that you describe them as just like you want more.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not, people put artists on these pedestals like we have some sort of special DNA or chromosome that like we were only gifted. And I'm like, no, it's just that we know how to tap into our creativity and we do it consistently enough that it's able to evolve and grow. So like those little moments where you're saying, I just create more, I'm able to tap into it. Like that's how it feels. So it's like when we are at that evolution stage, we're like kind of bored, right? We're like, I don't know what the next thing is. And then we see something that kind of scares the shit out of us. And we're like, let's like lean into that a little harder, because we trust our creativity enough that we're like, it's going to pull me through this, right? Like it doesn't matter how I do it. Mm-hmm. And you also, what I love about your process as you describe it is like, you have no end result in mind, right? Like you just do it and you just play and you just create. And I think that's really where the magic happens with creativity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. I agree 100%. And about the like people thinking that artists have this like different DNA, it's so true that it's not true, because I used to think that too. I used to think I don't really have any artistic skill. I don't have any talent. Like, I'm not even going to try it. But now a lot of people think I've been painting my whole life, and I really haven't. So I truly think like creativity is so, it's not only important for people to tap into it, but it's like almost necessary, because it's so healing and it's so transformative and powerful. And yeah, support your local artists, please.
Right. But and like something else that you've tapped into before, just like watching your social media, is the fact that the more that you create, the more that you begin to know yourself. And especially as we look through at one of your projects, like the Crafting Hope book, I feel like by going through that personally, I'm going to see a different side of you. And as you look back on it, you're going to be like, that was me. Like, that was a past version of me that is now like integrated. And I think that is the really beautiful part of looking at our work in a future tense. You know what I mean? So like, you're going to have this physical evidence that you grew and you shifted and you evolved. And like, it's almost like an award. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, I fucking did that. I love it. So just the fact that as you create, and this is like, I always tell people too, because everybody's looking for somebody to tell them more about themselves, right? Like, we go to astrologers, we go to psychics, we go to people who know psychology. Tell me what I don't know about myself. Tell me everything that you can tell me so I can know. And it's like, we already know all of that. We just have to tap into it. We just have to process it through creativity. And creativity can be in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't have to be painting or drawing, as you know.
Yeah, 100%. I'm a big advocate for art journaling, because I think it's so accessible, in the sense that you don't necessarily have to create a painting. You don't necessarily have to create a drawing. You can just piece together a collage from just like books or ephemera packs or whatever.
Yeah.
And I also love the process of being able to just reflect through your work. Like, exactly what you're saying is exactly what I've experienced, because in doing my art journal, I look back and I see these motifs of just like images that I'm drawn to, figures that I'm drawn to, like things that I'm constantly referencing, that it's easier to look through my journal and see those things and pull from them. Because a lot of the time, as we've talked about, when you're creating, you want more. So it's like it's also a jumping point for me to just more. Like, it's like a branch. And with this book, I'm really just, there's no real, like you said, it's very much focused on process. But I hope that anybody that gets this book can see it and see the value in reflecting in yourself, and also the beauty and imperfection. Like, I'm not trying to create a masterpiece in any of these pages, but what I'm trying to do is just express how I'm feeling and document it and understand it, and do it in such a way that feels authentic. And I think there's beauty in that in and of itself. And I hope that I can, get someone to see that and then be like, hey, I want to start my own art journal.
You got me, so I'm sure you're getting a lot more people than you.
So I'm successful.
You is how your style came to be. And ironically, the biggest question that artists have when they're starting off is, like, how do I form this unforgettable style, this unique style? So what would be your advice to those people who are really like, okay, well, I'm learning all the technical stuff, but how do I figure out what my style is?
Yeah, I think my biggest advice, and I heard this a lot too when I was like creating and thinking about that, is just create a lot. Just do, and don't overthink it too much. Just explore the things that drive you, that make you excited, that interest you, that make you light up, that you want to spend time on. I think your style, your voice really just comes naturally without you having to really overthink it,
Yeah.
And I think also, like, it helps a lot to be in community with other creatives, because it can help you see, sometimes you don't realize you have a style.
Yeah.
You have a style and it's very distinct, but you don't realize it and you don't realize why. You know, I have a lot of creative friends and they'll tell me like, oh, you do this a lot. And I'm like, oh yeah, I do, don't I? Like, it's just, I think part of it is really just like being in creative community and letting yourself create without judgment.
Yeah.
Trying to like, I do a lot of these creative affirmations for myself. And I know like for some people it can sound silly, but it actually does help me a lot to like set an intention before I create of like, I'm not going to judge what I'm going to make. I'm just going to make, and whatever comes out comes out. And so yeah, I think my biggest advice is just create with reckless abandon. Just do
Love
it.
it.
Do it.
Yeah. Just do it.
Yeah,
You
use
heard
your free will to create
I love
something.
it. It is. It's so true. Like I always tell people, like go towards the things that excite you and that
Mm,
you want to play with. Like creating should feel like you're a 3-year-old just like throwing shit at the wall sometimes. You
mhm.
know what I mean? Like, yes, some of it is very intellectual, some of it is very thought provoking and takes a lot of time to form. But in order to get to that point, we have to figure out the stuff we actually want to pursue enough to create that, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Cause it's a big expression of your energy and yourself and stuff. And sometimes you don't really need to think about it. It just comes out.
Truly.
Yeah.
Truly. Yeah. Yeah, and I could talk to you for 7 years. We're almost at 30 minutes, but I want to ask you about one more thing with your business because you've hit quite a bit of social media fame and a lot of artists don't know how to handle this. So I really want to get your feedback and your advice on how you've kind of managed the comments, the audience. How did it affect you at first and how have you grown from it?
That's a great question. It was really hard at first, especially as somebody with a chronic illness. I have visual difficulties, so screen time can be tough for me. I try to, and then also there is a difficulty of like, sometimes it can be really hard to hear everyone's opinion all the time on what you're doing. But I will say most people have been so kind and sweet and supportive, and like it's so affirming and also motivating to
Mhm.
just hear all these kind words and all that. But like at first it was, us creatives are very sensitive. We tend to be sensitive, right?
A little bit.
So honestly, the best thing for me was to just lean into my community of creatives and vent to them, because like they understand what it's like to be seen and to put yourself out there all the time and to get people's opinions that you may not want to hear. Really, just talking to my friends, my creative friends, and venting and things like that has helped me through that aspect of it. And like managing social media, I really try to, I honestly, I don't really have any sort of strategy. Just, it's much like my art. I just throw stuff out there and like if it works, it works. I try not to think too much about like engagement or comments or anything like that. And I think like I'm just really lucky and people just have been so supportive that I haven't really had to worry about that too much. Like my advice for like approaching social media and stuff is just like same thing as a creativity part of like follow what excites you, because there's no like one way that a creative can be successful online or even in like business and things like that. Everyone is so unique in how they succeed and like how they express their creativity. And I think it's the same for a creative business. It's like some people want to lean into teaching, some people want to lean into selling originals, some people want to lean in, and it's a similar thing for the online presence of like some people want to do a lot of vlogs, some people want to do like tutorials and things like that. So I think like leaning into whatever excites you, I think people respond to that because they can feel the energy of you're passionate about this and they love to see that. And I think like that has helped me a little bit. I know that like with social media, a lot of it is also just luck. Like you pick the right trending sound at the right time or whatever. But I think part of it too is just that I think people can see that I'm just a girl that really loves painting. And I just want to share that with you. So I feel like if you follow your passions, then you will find the people that you need to find.
Truly. I love that. That was such a good explanation. And I love it because artists get overlooked a lot on social media and they think it's because of their art not being good enough or their personality not being good enough. And
Mhm.
it's such bullshit. You know what I mean? And the way that you described it as just showing like it's not a business for us. And I hate when people are always like, don't take your art so personal. Like it's a business. I'm like, dude, I don't know about you, but my art is my fucking heart.
Mhm.
So like when I
Yeah.
show up and I share it, like I want the feedback and I want the attention from it because that's what I crave when I share my art, right? So it's like it's very not detrimental, but like it can hurt. It can hurt a lot if people don't see your work. And I know a lot of artists that go through that, but it's like we have to make social media about us and what works for us and how we can use it to further our creativity and not stunt it. So that's a beautiful way that you described it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I feel that also. It can hurt so much when you put so much love into something and you share it and it's like people don't really see it or maybe people don't respond to it in the way that you expect. But honestly, it's because social media can be so random sometimes. Like, you know what I mean? I try to overcome that by remembering that like I I shared a bunch of pieces that I was making like when I finished them, like 5 or 6. And it was like a little series. And like I was sharing reels of me making them as it went. But then and they were fine, like people liked them, but it wasn't like anything crazy.
Mhm.
But then when I shared a montage of them all together, that went viral completely.
Really?
I got like millions of views and like tons of comments and like it absolutely like blew up. And I'm like, but why didn't any of these others? Because it's sharing the exact same work, right? So it's just like really, it's just about like sometimes like marketing it the right way or like it's a reel that like people really resonate with for whatever reason. Like the timing is great or the music is great or whatever. So that's different than your art. That doesn't mean your art's bad. It's just like figuring out what people tend to resonate with and how to present your art in that way. And so, like, yeah, but I totally see what you mean. Cause I feel that sometimes too, where I'm like, well, do y'all not like my art anymore? Like, wait, did you forget about me? But no, it's really not that. It's just sometimes you have to just reshare and be persistent. And I think that is something that I've benefited from is like I have the time to be like really persistent and to experiment and I just try to like just throw a lot of stuff out there. And so I think that's another just approach to have is try not to take it personally. I know it's hard, but really, like all of us have experienced this where some stuff just hits and some doesn't. And it could be anything from time of day you post to sound you use to like reels are not doing well right now, carousels are doing better. Like, little things like that.
Yeah, it becomes like marketing issues
Mhm.
or content creation issues. So, yeah, it is like this is stuff that artists have to know, especially if they want to make a living doing
Mhm.
artwork because it's part of the job, right? So, 100%, 100%. Tell us where we can find you at, where your store is at, how we can buy and share your artwork, and just anything else you have to say to the listeners today.
Yeah, we should keep talking after this, actually. But yeah, thank you. So my website is paxpaints.com. I have everything there. I have a new line of jewelry with my art in it, Crafting Hope pre-orders, originals, prints, and commission inquiries as well can be made there. You can find me on any social media as Pax Paints, and I hope to see you there. Thanks for listening, everyone. I hope I could help bring some value to.
Oh, you're such an angel. Oh my God. Well, thank you so much for being on. I can't wait for people to listen to this and your knowledge and just your heart, because that's the thing that shines through the most with you. It's just your love and your passion for helping people and creating things that are beautiful as well. So thank you so much for being on the Artist Emancipation Podcast. We will talk to you again.
Thank you so much for having me. Same to you. Same to you. You're amazing.